Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating it's Friday, December 1st, 2017. In both the Lynn Life and the Jamie Body Mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as they are already living by the Search for Truth rules given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us, and are already participating in the work to complete the Search for Truth assignments given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us. And someone interjects and says actually they should be contributing more to completing the work than they are taking or using or borrowing in resources, because that is one of the rules of the Search for Truth community, and we believe that to be correct.
That's true.
As always, the foundational intention remains to do what is ours to do right now in all dimensions, to manifest the divine plan. In other words, to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience. However, the data very clearly shows the only dimensions in which we are able to achieve outcomes are dimensions smaller than the ones in which these ground zero host lives are experiencing primary dimension.
Wow, they don't want us to say that.
They don't want us to say it, but it's still true. The data very clearly shows the only dimensions that we are able to have an impact inside of are the dimensions smaller than this one, known as ground zero, this dimension in which these host lives are experiencing primary sentience. What now? In order to evacuate the dead children of the deeper, denser dimensions. Literally, someone just said, why are you giving dead children priority?
Yeah, someone asked that question.
How does one explain that we should care about the less powerful? How do we explain that? We should care about the less powerful. What does it say about us if we don't care about helping those who are less powerful than we are? What does that say about all of us as individuated sentiences if we ourselves don't care about helping those who are less powerful than we are?
The question goes way up.
Question goes way up. I know it doesn't say anything good. I know everything that it says about us is a not good thing, is a bad thing.
Yes, that's true.
The details are fuzzy, but it's really clear it's not good. Why do you ask?
Why do you ask?
I think the questioner is asking to try to get people to look at themselves, or to at least look at each other, because it's so hard to see anything in ourselves, and we can often see it in each other long before we're able to see it in ourselves. And it is a valid question. What does it say about us if we aren't willing to help, or not even, can we go beyond willing and into unless we really want to help those who are less powerful than we are? If we're only willing to help them, that's a pretty low standard, isn't it? What now, in order to reach to higher standards, become better people, better sentiences, better presences, all of us in every moment? We can tune to living to higher standards. That's something we can do. Tuning to increase the standards of behavior to that which will actually work to create deeper, denser dimension worlds that work for all categories of deeper, denser dimension sentience. And when we are saying deeper, denser dimensions, we are referring to the dimensions smaller than the ones in which these ground zero host lives are experiencing primary sentience.
That's true.
Dimensions smaller than ground zero. That's what we mean by it. When we're asking for help for the deeper, denser dimensions, we are not asking for help for these host lives. We're asking for help in the effort to help the smaller dimensions, the much smaller dimensions. Dimensions that to the host lives would be, let's say, cellular or atomic or subatomic, the much smaller dimensions. Why do you ask? They ask because it's really confusing and hard to tell.
Yes, very
Interdimensional,
confusing.
yes, interdimensional information is very hard to come by.
That's true.
And almost everybody is just whining, wah, 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 help me, my problems are the worst.
Yes.
And no one stands out from the crowd with that act.
Yes.
Those requests all go into the same folder.
That's
and
true.
the folder has trillions upon quadrillions of requests in it. Wah, wah,
Yes.
wah, help me, help me, help me. Nobody stands out from the crowd with that act. But when there is a request that says, will you please help us help those who are less powerful than we are, that's a different category of request.
That's true.
Why do you ask?
It's possible they are asking because they are wondering why their requests aren't being met from presences higher than them.
Well, it's a really good question because the presences who are higher than you are probably having as difficult a time discerning what's up with you as you are having a difficulty discerning what's up with us, as we are having a difficulty discerning what's up with, let's say, the electrons. It's just really tough. And so it's possible that you really do have the intentions to help smaller presences and they just can't tell. Are you willing to let them know that the briefing manuals seem to be entirely incorrect and that that's why it's hard for good guides or guardian angels or whatever labels are being used for higher powers? Even those higher powers that have good intent are having a really hard time doing a good job because the briefing manuals don't talk about things like astral drift and the lack of autocorrect and the difficulty in discerning what's actually going on, and the way that it doesn't make any sense to depend on self-reporting because nobody can see their own stuff, but that's pretty much what is happening. People are listening to the self-reporting.
That's true.
And presences everywhere believe themselves to be that fictitious, hypothetical good person
That's
rather
true.
than looking at their actual lives, and our lives show who and what we really are. How we're living our lives shows the real us that is the real us. What we're willing to do is what we're doing, by definition. Are you willing to do something to get the briefing manuals updated so that good people like you and good people like those above you are no longer misled? There's a clearing and a straightening up feeling.
That's true.
Does that mean they just left? Maybe.
Maybe.
It's okay. Nobody's going to do anything, and we know that nobody's going to do anything. Let's pump up dead children from the deeper, denser dimensions who really want to get to God, and we can pump them right up through that opening that just opened up. Squeezing the toothpaste tube straight up. Let's see if we can squeeze the toothpaste tube until we see actual dead children coming out the top of the death tunnel. And so far, I only see adults coming out.
That's true.
No matter how much we work to send up the dead children, all that comes out are adults. It's confusing.
That's true.
Well, I heard that horse. Hi, horse. What does that mean? It's a nature realm's signal. Well, we can pump up dead children who are completely different than we are. We can pump up dead children of machines, for example. The machines that are thrown away before they even have a chance to fulfill their purpose. And somebody asks why that would be. Well, one reason it is that we live in a society of consumptive excess with silly rules like we should all buy each other gifts at certain times of the year and present each other with gifts.
That's
and
true.
So people buy things that nobody wants that are manufactured, and that's what a machine present is, a manufactured present.
Yes, that's true.
And they give them to each other, and nobody wants them, and they end up in the landfill. There are some statistics that say that 90% of objects that are something like manufactured. I could have that wrong, but 90% of them end up in a landfill within a year. And that would be a dead machine zone child.
That's true.
It's not even a year old. So to help up souls that are distinctly different than we are, I think is helpful in showing that this isn't a selfish effort. We could help up the souls. How about let's try to help up the souls of dead machine zone children straight out the top of that death tunnel. And then we could add in dead plant souls, dead children, souls of plants. Plants cut down before their time. Maybe they're sprayed with Roundup.
That's true.
Or pulled up by the roots. And I pull plants up by the roots. I was doing it yesterday.
That's true. I did it this morning.
But now, in order to create deeper, denser dimension worlds that work for all categories of deeper, denser dimension sentience, immediately someone is pointing out that the real question in any moment is, what does the soul plan say? What is actually supposed to happen here? And somebody else is saying, we've got one of those discussion rooms. Somebody else is saying, when we have an era in which the plans are not functioning, the question is really, what does the situation actually call for? If there were a properly functioning divine plan that was intended to create worlds that work for all categories of sentience on that world, then it would really be a valid question. And that is the valid question. What does the situation actually call for if the goal is to create a world that works for all categories of sentience that live within and upon the world? Let's see if we can pump up some dead children who really want to get to God right up to that table where they're talking. Data for you from the deeper, denser dimensions. I see some little creatures on a table. Crawling on a table.
That's true.
They might be children. It's hard to tell. I do see creatures crawling on a table.
Yes,
and they're
I
small,
also.
little creatures.
Yes.
I don't think the presences at the table notice them yet.
No.
Somebody notices them.
That's true. He's not sure what to do about it. He hasn't said anything out loud yet.
No, he's starting to wonder if he's crazy.
Yes, he's thinking, maybe I'm going crazy.
No, friend, they're really there. Here, let's keep pumping them up until somebody else notices them. I actually don't think anybody else is going to notice them. I think they are so caught up in not wanting to notice and not wanting to know what's actually going on that they aren't going to notice it.
That's true.
We can ask to be shown through time the moment the next person notices it. Oh, civilizations have crumbled by then.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. What now, in order to create deeper, denser dimension worlds that work for all categories of deeper, denser dimension sentience? Somebody's saying go with game theory. Game theory says evacuate the depths, evacuate the deeper, denser dimensions, pump up the dead. And they're pointing out how, given the reality of the toxicity and the genetic modifications, GMO'd organisms, and toxicity, that it's a really toxic brew, and that things aren't functioning as God intended in the deeper, denser dimensions, not at the molecular level, not at the atomic level. They aren't. We agree. Biochemistry is real. It's true. They aren't. And certainly, somebody else is saying, and certainly there was not the intent to use resources that are scarce to make things that are thrown into a landfill within a year. That's crazy. And we agree.
I agree.
It's crazy. And so focusing on something like sales are up this holiday spending season ignores the reality that people are deep in debt. And so
that's true.
Sales are up, but why? People are going farther into debt than they already are, which is already too far in debt.
That's true.
To buy things that nobody wants or needs that end up in a landfill, and a lot of pollution happens to make those things and get them to the stores and get them home.
That's true.
And then ship them across the country again, and meanwhile children are working in factories in unsafe conditions for slave wages to make those things, and it's just wrong at every single step of the process. And the only thing that hits the news is that retail sales are up this holiday season, as if it's a good thing. And the reality is that's horrifying because of what goes into making those sales.
That's true.
That's extremely horrifying news. Once more going farther into debt to buy things that nobody wants, creating pollution for no purpose at all, no benefit whatsoever. Why do you ask?
Sending it